Are you ready to create a life you crave? Let's spin that doom loop of negativity into an upward success cycle and start living lucky.
Good morning.
I'm Jana.
I'm Jason.
And we are living lucky.
You are too.
How are you telling the story?
Oh, that is so good.
Storytelling has been around
since the beginning of time. Before writing, before drawing on walls.
There's a formula. Hollywood has it down. Hollywood knows how to tell a rom-com. They know how to tell an epic story. They know how to tell a thriller.
A mystery.
They know how to tell a docuseries, a biopic. Or is it a biopic? I never know. What is it? Biopic or biopic?
Whatever you want to tell yourself.
What is the story you're telling yourself? Okay, here's the deal. Jason and I had a dinner party over the weekend. We have these new friends that we are getting to know. They're great. I adore spending time with them.
They're all right.
And we were telling them a story that happened to us early in our relationship. We were
18
engaged. Yeah, we were engaged to be married. We were planning our wedding, our honeymoon.
Our happily ever after.
We went to this charity auction, and at the charity auction, we happened to be sitting at a table with some high ballers, like some real
celebrities. It was
influential people in Orlando. I mean, I'm talking Mayor Dyer, Scott Maxwell from the Orlando Sentinel.
Some news anchors.
I mean, we're talking some really influential people here in Orlando. And when the auctioneer...
I love a live auction, first of all.
Jason,
it gets me riled up.
You love that. Love that. Whenever we go to any charity function, Jason always goes early.
Just tie my hands behind my back.
And he goes around and he checks out all the prizes. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the live auction. You absolutely
I feel like
love that.
It may have come from when I was a very young child and we had Ducks Unlimited and they had live auctions at the time. And they also had this big raffle.
Okay.
And every year in the raffle, all the kids get a ticket and they go in the raffle and there's a prize for every single child.
Okay.
And one year, all the raffle tickets came out and the last item, my name had not been called out yet.
Oh no.
And the last item was this beautiful double barrel shotgun.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just
You're gonna
so
shoot your eye out
because I didn't have a shotgun yet.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I had wanted a shotgun for so long, and my dad was like, maybe next year, because I always went hunting with him. And I was the bird dog. I was the one that I had to run out and get the birds out of the field. So I was like, my name is the only one that hasn't been called.
Yeah.
That is my shotgun.
Yes.
And they pulled the name out of the barrel.
Okay.
And I stood up.
Jason
And it
Shelfer.
wasn't my name.
Oh, no.
And I was devastated. I was like, there must be a better prize. There might be a car in the parking lot. I was like, what is going on?
How old were you? Were you even old enough to drive?
No, I was like 9 or 10. And I remember, I don't remember running out of the room, but I remember kind of tucking my head into my dad's. He wore this old tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows.
Oh my gosh, this
old hunter jacket.
Has an indelible memory for you.
I remember being devastated. Next year, I was the first name out of the barrel, which is odd, right? So it was fixed. Because my dad was a huge supporter of Ducks Unlimited, but I think that might be where my love of silent...
How do you know it was fixed?
How does your name go from not being called to being, hey, my son better have his name called first this year?
Now, Jason, is that just a story you're telling yourself?
I got this duck, this mallard that was...
Was it better than a shotgun?
No, it was a mallard that had been stuffed and mounted to a piece of driftwood.
You're not holding on to this.
No, not at all. I barely remember it. That's the story I'm telling myself.
Okay, well, at any rate, Jason loves auctions, if you can't tell. And we were telling our friends that early in our marriage, we went to this auction. We were sitting at a table with some high rollers, and Jason turns to me and he says, watch this. I'm going to get the auction
I'm
started.
gonna bid this thing up. I'm gonna help this charity out.
So the first thing out of the gate was a trip to Paris.
Woohoo! 10 days in Paris, the great Paris.
And immediately they started the auction at like $10,000. And Jason is like, I'm gonna bid early and get all these people at the table to bid.
Get excited.
Thinking that Jason had influence on all these influential people. And so Jason, he raises his hand and immediately
it was more than that. It was because Storage Wars was on at the time, and they was like, yep.
Yeah, so Jason bids right away. And then all of a sudden, there's like crickets. Nobody else bids. And Jason starts to sober up really quickly. You turn bright red. And I just remember...
Like, where did everybody go? It's like the room was excited for a minute. And then maybe I was like, was I not supposed to bid?
And you like started turning to people at the table and you were like, aren't you going to bid?
Yeah.
Come on. Don't you want to go to Paris?
Who's
like,
with me?
Yeah, come on.
It was that Jerry Maguire moment where he's like, I'm quitting. Who's with me? Nobody. I'm going to Paris.
And
Who's
next thing
with
I
me?
know, the auctioneer turns to Jason and says, "You win, sir." And
to the sunburned guy in the red face.
Yeah, you were bright red, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay for this? They come over immediately and get your credit card.
How would you like to pay for that? I was like, a couple credit cards? Would that work?
You were like, honey, can you get out your credit card too? And we were like, oh my gosh, what have we done? And seriously, like we had to leave early because it caused like tension between the two of us.
Start getting diarrhea.
Upset stomach, indigestion.
You got to move some funds around.
Anyway, when we started telling the story, Jason, actually, I feel like you kind of went back into the panic when you were telling the story on Saturday night.
I remember, but the thing is, so in that moment, I remember it very distinctly because there's those moments in life that you have these visceral reactions.
Yes.
And the idea of Paris and going there with you, I had dreams. I'd never been to Paris. I've been to Europe a couple times. But I'd never been to Paris, and there's a romance around that. There's a nostalgia, even though I'd never been there, of what it would be like, and especially to be going with you and our wedding being so close. Mm-hmm. And it had never even crossed my mind to dream that big, and now this dream is being presented to me. I thought the idea of pretending that it could be possible through a bid at a silent or a live auction would bring it closer and let you know that I wanted it for us.
It was very romantic.
And then I had that forced fantasy, that forced realization of my fantasy given to me. Mm-hmm. And it freaked me out because I was like, I don't know how, but now we're doing it.
Okay, so let me just fill everybody in because what happened at the dinner on Saturday night is that we were telling the story. I started to tell the story in a playful and fun manner, almost a humorous story at the table. Because that's what it turned
into, was fun and
because
humor.
That's the way I remembered it. And then in the middle of me telling the story, Jason hijacked me telling the story. And all of a sudden, when he started talking about it, he started bringing in, the stress of having to pay for it and the feelings.
And the fact that we had a wedding coming up.
Felt
and the other
so real that all of a sudden at the table, like our new friends were like, that's a terrible story.
Do you know what I did? I recreated the mood change I had at the auction.
You did. You recreated the mood, and all of a sudden, our new friends were like, "That's a horrible story.
Like,
Why would you tell this story?"
Let me show you what I experienced at the auction. let me give everyone diarrhea here.
And all of a sudden, I was the one that brought the whole thing up, and I started feeling badly.
Why did I bring this up?
I'm like, oh my God.
What a horrible story. It was a great story.
I totally just changed the mood. Jason's now feeling stressed.
I just killed the evening.
Yeah, Jason's sweating over here, and now our friends are feeling sorry for us. There's actually pity at the table. You could literally feel pity. And now I'm feeling like we need to go.
Oh, no.
I literally think it's time to go. Upset stomach, indigestion.
Or nausea, diarrhea.
We don't even know.
I hope this episode gets sponsored. We don't take sponsors. Our commercials our podcasts are ad free. You're welcome. Keep living lucky. Well, that's
our gift to you.
Yeah, that is part of it.
We do this for fun.
Sometimes we don't realize how we're crafting the story and what story we may trap ourselves in, or what story we might be telling ourselves, and how it can be affecting the overall feeling, vibration, and mood of the moment, or mood that we're moving towards.
And energy is contagious.
Yes.
So here at this dinner on Saturday night, I started out saying, hey, you know what? That reminds me of a comedy that I want to share with you. A memory that in my head, I had filed it away as a comedy story. And then in the middle of our story, Jason tag teams it. He's like, oh, I'll take that.
Let me tell you about this tragedy.
And then he turns it into a tragedy. And we're all sitting there, and literally the music went from Larry David, like, you know, to, yeah, right?
And see, the trip for me was comedy and romance and all that. But that moment, the actual pin
was
in the moment was stress, because I was like, sometimes when you're in the moment, it feels like, how are we getting out of this? And you don't have to worry about the how.
No, you turned it into a courtroom scene where they're like, oh my God, are we going to be convicted almost?
Right.
Like there was like a heaviness. And I felt like we all felt this emotion.
Which I think this is a huge lesson in when you're in it, when you're the one, because I had put myself in the predicament.
You did. You hijacked the story from me, and then you took the feeling and you put yourself in it, and you regurgitated it to the table.
But even back in 18 years ago, I was the one that put myself in the predicament. So I had created the circumstances, or I had put myself in the circumstances that caused the feeling I was having,
yes,
and put the meaning on it.
Yes.
So then I took the circumstances that we were in at the table Saturday, and then I put the meaning around that, similar to the same circumstances that we were at the auction.
Yes.
And then I created those same feelings and meanings and said, I'm going right back to that spot.
Yes, you did.
And then I created all that emotion within myself again.
You did.
And so I went there again.
And here's the thing, is that I didn't know how to fish you out of it.
We just need to go to Paris.
I'll bid. Oh, gosh. Maybe that should be our sponsor.
Well, instead, we're going to Estonia.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so I think becoming aware.
The awareness is the key. It
always comes back to awareness. And here's the thing, is that I have had some speaking engagements where I have gotten off stage and I have said to you, I'm not sure what it was, but there was an energy where I clicked into the audience and then it felt really heavy. And here's the thing, is when we bring an audience, or when we click into a person and we bring the emotion, either we're meeting them where they're at, or
we're taking them to where we are.
Taking them to where we are.
Or where we want them to go.
We need to make sure that we are aware of where we're taking them, and we bring them back to where we want to go.
And I think you did a great job of saying, hey, this story went to kind of that emotional hard place, and that's not where this story landed. And then we were able to take them back through, and we physically got up from the table and moved to the living room.
We did.
Which was an allowance of moving that energy. And that
was a
beautiful
move the energy.
Environment.
However, I still feel like there were a couple other instances.
You could smell where I left the stain. You could smell where I left the stain at the dining room table.
There were a couple other stories where the same thing happened. And I think it literally, and maybe your soul just needed to connect at that level. Maybe that's just where you were at on Saturday night.
So it was like we were going through a roll of hills and hills and mountains of getting to know each other.
Yes.
Where we kind of walked through, hey, these are some of the things we've accomplished and been through.
Yes.
Because we talked about taking care of elderly parents, taking care of grandparents.
Yes.
And that there's challenges in that. And then getting through COVID. So we kind of journeyed along this path together, and we were telling the stories of success and overcoming. So I wanted to make sure, hey, you're not alone.
Yes.
We've all been through something. We've all been, and look where we are today. We're enjoying a wonderful communion with each other, enjoying a wonderfully prepared dinner, great conversation.
Oh, the dinner was fantastic.
And smell this stink story that I just shared with everybody.
No. I don't want you to come away with that. I just want people. The point of my podcast, or our podcast today.
I'll claim it.
The point of our lesson here is to be aware of the energy, of the vibe that we are giving off. And also, it's okay to share those feelings and to go into those emotions, but we also need to flavor those emotions with a little bit of spice and a little bit of pop and a little bit of color, and a little bit
fizz.
of pizzazz, a little bit of fun, and a little bit of
life is meant to have flavor.
Life is meant to have
that exuberance and that touch of color.
We need to remember, I believe that our main purpose in this world for all of us, I know we all have specific purposes, but I think our overall purpose for being on earth is to experience joy.
And to tell a beautiful story.
Ooh, that's the way to wrap it up. We'll end there. Thank you for joining us. We are so grateful for you.
Keep living lucky.
Bye-bye. If the idea of living lucky appeals to you, visit us at startlivinglucky.com.